to America against their will and being forced to perform the role of the exotic or of the oddity for an audience that would then feel superior to them. And we felt that that history that wasn't being paid attention to was more like what we were living in the present than this performance theory version of equal, all the cultures of the world holding hands and dancing and singing Kumbaya, okay? So we put it out there and said, this pathos, this pathetic scene of being forced into an identity as an ethnographic oddity is our reality, and it's our history, and now you all have to deal with it. Well, we were not liked. It was not well received for a long time. I spent 10 years without being invited to do anything in my community as punishment for having done it. And then things changed and people started to realize that maybe we hadn't been so wrong. And a lot of younger researchers began to do more work on this and to talk about it. And slowly, now it's been 25 years, the tide has turned and there's more of a recognition that these kinds of oppressive and involuntary performances should be introduced into the study of theater and performance and should be understood. And there's also, the art historians were the last ones to jump on the bandwagon and actually acknowledge that it was that we had made an artwork that was worth considering. But it takes a long time to change that mentality and to make people think. And we had to withstand a lot of resistance for a very long time before those changes could take place. So, but it's 25 years later, I'm still alive.
What I really appreciate is that, in speaking all about this, is that there is no doubt in what you do. There is no doubt. It feels like you just...
No, I mean, of course, everybody doubts. Every artist doubts. I tell my students that in every single project I do, there's always a moment when it's total darkness, and I'm convinced that it's shit, and that it makes no sense, and that I need to stop, and that I won't get done, and I get really frightened, and I have a week of insomnia, and all that, it's like and now I'm here comes despair. This is my, the week of despair, right? So of course I have doubts. Of course I do. Everybody. I mean, if you don't have doubts, you're an idiot. There's a lot of reasons to doubt.
Is anybody willing to continue the conversation? You have any questions for Coco?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
I don't know your work, but as I understood, you work on violence, or you make projects on violence.
Sometimes.
Yes. Do you make a difference between male and female violence in these projects? Is that a theme for you?
Well, when it's necessary to do so, when it makes sense to do so, I might. But in the case of the piece that I was talking about before, it's with female interrogators who were using sex against men. And that's real. It was really, really happening. But what I was trying to do, what the press was doing at that time, because of the revelations of the abuse of prisoners at Abu Ghraib, was to single out 3 young women and say, this is a problem of these young women who are uneducated and who are manipulated by their boyfriend in one case or whatever, and that just leave it there. And what I was finding in my research was, no, that this was actually a project, that, that the CIA was involved, that the Pentagon had authorized the use of female sexuality as a tactic, that this was discussed, right, and planned, and that it wasn't arbitrary, and that it wasn't the case of bad apples, and that women in the military were sanctioning this all the way up the food chain, right to Condoleezza Rice, right, who was working right under Bush at the time. So I was trying, in the project, I look at this, at this dilemma that we were facing at that time, in which a kind of neoliberal political order could take an element of something that looked like a feminism and use it instrumentally to serve a militaristic end. And you know that, and so ultimately, you know, it's not about like male and female, but about power. Who's in power, right? And power doesn't necessarily have a gender.
Question at the back, yes?
Hi, Coco.
Hi.
Not only our students have learned a lot from you. So thanks for being you. Thanks for being a strong and critical voice for all the years you've been doing this. I have a question, because one of the things that you have raised in the past, which I thought was a sort of way to work, or at least to make it clear that sometimes theory creates abstractions that are not particularly useful, is that you've talked about like social fact. And for example, the social fact of racism, the social fact of sexism. And especially when certain kind of like identity theories get really into abstractions and suddenly, for example, women that are fighting for the right to have abortions are kind of old-fashioned because they're biological females or something like this. And I think this comes through in your work, that it sort of, you make visible the social facts of exactly this intertwining of race, class, and gender and how those power dynamics work. I would like you to maybe speak a little bit more about the implications of social facts right now, like the realities of the social facts in our new fascist era.
Well, you know, I mean, I do think that in the U.S. that this is not the first time that there is a backlash against the perception that minorities and women had made gains, right? And then I'm not the only person talking about this. There are other intellectuals who are writing about this. And rather than being in shock about Trump, maybe we should look at this pattern, right? That, you know, we had a civil war and the Emancipation Proclamation and the end of slavery, then we went into the Reconstruction and then into Jim Crow, right? That there was a backlash against the emancipation of blacks in the United States that re-enslaved them, right? Until the civil rights movement was finally able to implement certain laws, which are now being undone by basically a cohort of Southern politicians who are repeating the same arguments that were used in the 50s and 60s, trying to prevent the implementation of civil rights laws for minorities and women. So it's almost like you 2 steps forward and 1 step back, and 3 steps forward and 2 steps back, and that's kind of where we are right now. What I see in the moment is, you know, I mean, I'm now in my 50s dealing with kids who are 30 and sometimes even 40 years younger than me in my work, who have been socialized and educated in a neoliberal period in which they have absolutely no idea why anybody would need to protect rights. They have no understanding. I mean, when Trump was elected, I told my women students, I said, if you are sexually active and you don't already have a year's supply of birth control, you better get it now before January 21st, because you may not be able to get it later, and you don't want to be caught without anything once he comes into office, because they're going to move really fast. And they were all looking at me like, what are you talking about? I was like, you don't remember, you weren't alive when you couldn't get it, right? When birth control was unavailable. Well, I can tell you I was, and you want to have a year's supply before January 21st. And so, you know, and this was a simple thing to talk to young women about, right? But then try to move from there to get young people who have been educated in an era in which they didn't learn how, they don't know anything, they don't even know why there was a civil rights movement. Okay? So this is the limit on what you can actually be exposed to in public education in many parts of the United States. It's so censored, and you have these school boards where you have evangelical parents asking to have creationism introduced into schools and to stop teaching evolution. I mean, we're not, forget about feminism for a moment. Let's just talk about like the battle in school about whether you can teach science, okay? So there's a real problem, because it means that you can never assume that there's an accumulation of knowledge about about things. Right? Now, at the same time, it's true that the leaders of the Black Lives Matter movement are young and that they're very agile as organizers and they're really good at communications and all, but that is not representative of the majority population at all. It's much more the case that, you know, there would be doubt, right, about, well, do you really need to go out into the street? What do you have to do this for? I mean, when people started calling for a strike on January 20th, on the day of the inauguration, you know, there were people mostly from the Occupy movement who were sort of thinking about different ways to organize in the art communities and other communities. And, you know, I got called by some art magazines and they're like, can you write something about why artists should strike? I was like, well, why do I have to tell them why? And I, you know, had like the editors of Hyperallergic and Grey Room and all these places that I write for saying, well, the young people don't even know what a strike is. They don't know why, you know, why would a strike be an answer? So, you know, that's, to me, this is the problem that, you know, we can't, there isn't even an agreement about the existence of the social facts that you're referring to, right? And you know, you have to be taught to see things. It's not always self-evident, the cause of what you're seeing, right? That, I mean, for example, the media in the last few years has treated police violence against unarmed black men as a structural repeat phenomenon. That is a major change from the way the press used to deal with it, which was as an individual incidents that were where there was probable cause for the police response, right? So now instead they're like, well, it's another black man and another policeman, so they're making you see a pattern, whereas 10 years ago it would be the opposite. It might not be reported, or it would have been, this is an individual instance, maybe the guy did something, maybe he had something in his pocket, and so there would be no attempt to draw the connections.
Can I ask a little follow-up question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I think a lot of what your work does is create, and it's partly what we were talking about science fiction, is without being pedagogical or like basically teaching people about this, is one thing is opening up